Hi everybody, it's Dr. Lori, and I'm back with more of the behind the scenes stuff, you know, the rants and the raves, the goods and the bad. You know, I get some stuff off my chest, I tell you what's happening. I do a video about name calling because people are calling me names. They are calling me names. They really are. Okay, so they're saying, oh no. So then there are the people who are, of course, naysayers, because there's always naysayers. And they go, oh no, no one's calling her names. No one's calling her names. No one's doing that at all. People are calling me names left and right all over the place. They're calling me names. Okay, so having said that, guess what? One of these people who says that I'm not being name called actually starts a Facebook group. You know what the title of the Facebook group is? They're calling me names, right? So in the Facebook group title of this page that they're making, they call me a name. Now you're saying that? I mean, it's ridiculous. And then, of course, there are the social media folks. This one I thought really took some gumption. So a person on social media who doesn't want me to be part of their group, who basically says that I'm not allowed to be part of their group and trashes me on social media, you know, and it's very obvious. You can find all these things, trashes me on social media, and then comes on to my social media pages and tries to get support and, of course, support from me and also from all of my followers. So, you know, you have to be careful of this too. There's a lot of stuff going on online that really is not our best, putting all of our best foot forward, right? We're not putting our best feet forward with a lot of these things. But this person has the audacity to not only say, no, I don't want you in my group, and I'm going to trash you in my group, but then I'm going to go to your group and I'm going to try to get your group to support my group. I mean, this is just ridiculous. You know, they're trying to get money. They're trying to get a GoFundMe page going. They're trying to get support for their position, you know, from me and from the people who, of course, follow me. So, you know, be careful out there. Be careful of what you're reading. Don't always assume that these people really have your best interest at heart or anybody's best interest at heart. Sometimes they don't have a charity's best interest at heart either. So, misinformation online is really a big problem. So, and sometimes it's well-intentioned. Sometimes people are giving out information and it's well-intentioned. So, and one of the ways that this happens for the good and the bad has to do with collectors. So, you know, I've heard some of these things that happen, like, oh, well, I'm a collector of pewter, and marks on pewter look like this, but, you know, marks on pieces that have only a certain amount of a particular metal look like this, and they're giving information out, and it might be well intended, but it's not always correct. So you have to be careful. And the other thing about this has to do with this moniker of collectors. You know, I've been all over the world appraising things. I've been in many, many, many people's homes, invited in to appraise objects. I've walked in where people have had, you know, a whole warehouse, like a garage full of toasters, okay? You know, or a whole house full of vintage teddy bears, or I mean, I can see them in my mind's eye. Amazing things. But when you ask those people, are you a collector? They look at me and they go, oh no, I'm not a collector. You know, you got a warehouse full of this stuff, but you don't consider yourself a collector. Somebody calls themselves a collector. A lot of times that is a term that people will hide behind. I've been doing this for 25 years or so, and let me tell you, there are a lot of ways that people will try to get you to sell your objects to them for a low price. I'm a collector and I really love this stuff, when really they might be a reseller or dealer that doesn't really want to pay top dollar knowing that you have something better. There may be an agenda sometimes, so be careful of that. I do also hear about, you know, when people are listing things and they want to discredit a listing. If you're listing something online, they want to discredit. They want to say, oh no, it's not an X, it's a Y, and I'm a collector of Ys and I know that it's this, you know. So be aware of that and be careful of that. You know, with these, of course, behind the scenes rants and raves, I want to teach you guys the stuff that I've known after all of these years of doing this. The stuff that I see, the tricks that I know are going out there and happening. So that's one of the things I want you to think about as well. So be aware of that. It could be well-intentioned, but misinformation is misinformation. Sometimes it's out there to push an agenda, and sometimes misinformation is just, you know, an honest mistake. But be careful and make sure you know the difference. So someone writes in, basically has commented and said, you know, hey, Dr. Lori, I repaint a lot of furniture. I get it from the roadside. I get it cheap. I get it when it's you know, when it's not so beautiful, and I try to make it more beautiful. In fact, and I think it makes it desirable, and I really like it. And basically, I save the piece until it comes back in style. So, sustainability is extremely important. It's extremely important to me. It's extremely important, of course, for our planet, for our kids, for everybody. But a couple of things about this, because I've been known to famously say, if you're not Picasso, don't repaint it. Because, a lot of times when you repaint something, you can actually devalue it. This is true in things like mechanical banks, or if you have pedal cars, or if you have, certain pieces of furniture. So you want to think about this kind of thing, because in fact, you could really damage a piece long term. So my only point in this is, before you repaint it, let me take a look and make sure that this piece is not, of course, something of very high value, even if it isn't in terrific shape when you got it. I know you're excited to repaint things, and a lot of you repurposers do that. You basically say, hey, Dr. Lori, let me check in before I do something to this piece, and that's smart. So doing that is a good idea, but I'm glad that you're sustaining and keeping these items, but some of them might be valuable in their original condition, even if it's not in great shape. So check in first. So, somebody is talking about a video where I'm talking about dolls, and she says, oh, I've got this great way for you to make a doll look better, a doll's eyes look better. You take this oil and you put it in the doll's eyes and you wait. Well, I don't know how long you wait, but you wait. And then after you waited a while, then all of a sudden it looks great. Well-intentioned, great idea. However, you don't know if it's a great idea, because a lot of these tests that you guys are putting out there as working, you don't know what the long-term effects will be on that object. Sometimes, these objects can be valuable. So when you do this, when you use acid to test your Bakelite, or you decide that you're going to, take a match to something. I mean, all different types of ways that you guys are doing this. Somebody wanted to use a particular, scrubbing cleaner on costume jewelry. So you want to be careful of that. You don't know what's going to happen long term. Oh, it looks great now. Well, it looks great now, but you don't know if it's going to disintegrate everything. Hey, we're all guilty of this. We all look for these, these hacks, of how do you clean this, or how do you clean that, or what do you do? I'm guilty of it. You look at a video and you go, oh, wow, that's a great idea. Let's try that. But you try it with something that you don't care about. I don't know, if you put a new kind of cleaner in your toilet bowl, well, all right, do I care about the toilet bowl? Not that much. But I might care about that piece that you're trying to resell if it's costume jewelry, for example. However, and I kind of care about the toilet bowl too, because it's important. You need the toilet bowl. But having said that, these crazy tests you got to be careful of, and you got to be careful of who your sources are. Who are you watching, and what do they know, and are they right, and what's going to happen long term? There are a lot of these crazy tests when it comes to antiques, so many of them, which is why I try to do these to teach you more stuff. But you got to be very careful of them, because a lot of them can do significant damage to your art, antiques, and collectibles. I remember very early in my career, there was a gentleman who went online and he found a way to clean a painting. He had a pair of colonial American paintings. He went online and he said, I could clean these. Why should I pay a professional conservator? Well, he started to clean them based on what he found online, and he literally stripped all of the pigment away, did a terrible, terrible thing, and he decreased the value on them by a lot. They went from being, $30,000 paintings all the way down. So you want to really be careful of that. I have a lot of experience with this kind of stuff. Be careful before you take the advice of someone you don't know, who may or may not be right, about conserving or restoring your objects. There's a reason there are professional conservators and restorers in the world. They know how to do it the right way. This is so much fun. This is so sweet. Someone wrote and said, Dr. Lori, I want one of my relatives to start to watch you, but this relative is not very adept with computers and it doesn't really like to use them and really just prefers to watch television. Will you please appear on television? And it was so cute to me, because I've appeared on television for many, many, many decades. I've been on television featured in all different shows, and you can read the list of shows on my website. But basically, she said, would you really look into getting yourself a spot on TV? Now, I've been on TV on specific shows for a long time, and I probably know all of these people, but what's funny about it is she was trying to give me instructions of, one of the big morning shows, of how I should get in touch with these people to see if I could be on it every week, so I can, in fact, so her relative can watch me on TV, because that's her preferred medium. Well, I understand this, but there's a couple of things. It's not really how they work. I've been in the world of TV and media for a long, long time. It's not really how they work where, you just go, oh, well, you just have me on because you should, because there's this one person who really wants that. If you really want that, you should get in touch with those folks online. Say, I love Dr. Lori. I want Dr. Lori to be on your show. That's one of the ways you could do it. But again, just so you understand how it is, it was a very, very nice, sweet idea. However, it's not that, I could just go, hi, I'm coming on your show. So think about that, but thank you for that. And if your relative really wants to, of course, do that, there's lots of opportunities for them to watch. I do wish that, maybe you could help that person get into more of the technology that we use so she can enjoy it too. But thank you so much for the support. I appreciate it. Hey, you tell them. I'll take a trip. I'll take a trip to go to, nearby New York or, wherever, of course, to be on the shows that you want me on. Thanks. I'm Dr. Lori. Thanks for being with me. I'll see you next time.